sedikit ya.
Terima kasih Nia. Terima kasih Bapak Ibu telah bergabung. Selamat pagi semua. Very good morning for Alex, Jesse for joining this program. So ini adalah program kelima dari 10 program yang akan kita lakukan secara online. Tentunya Bapak Ibu sudah mengikuti dari awal atau mungkin lebih baru mengikuti pada sesi kali ini. Program ini banyak yang mengawal implementasi program ini sampai nanti sesi ke-10. Kita berharap bahwa program ini memberikan input, juga masukan dan juga aspirasi sambil kita belajar dari pengalaman di Australia yang sudah menjalankan ini, bahkan secara akseleratif meningkatkan cakupan juga implementasi online program atau secara daring, pembelajaran jarak jauh secara daring sejak COVID-19. Jadi dari 10% mereka sudah hampir 100%. Nah, topik kali ini menarik karena akan lebih detail dan juga lebih teknis, membahas mengenai bagaimana mendesain dan juga menyusun materi program untuk online distance learning. Dari pembicara kita sudah juga Pak Dimas Agung Prasetyo, Kepala Universitas Terbuka ya, UPT TIK, yang akan mungkin melihat dari konteks Indonesia seberapa jauh online distance learning ini sudah dijalankan di Indonesia dan juga apa tantangan ke depan. Sambil kita juga akan menikmati dan juga mendengar penjelasan pengalaman Australia yang juga barangkali relevan untuk kita antisipasi dan juga pembelajaran kita untuk menjalankan pembelajaran jarak jauh ini lebih efektif. Itu saja selama 2 jam ke depan. Saya berharap Bapak Ibu bisa mengikuti program ini dan juga memberikan masukan bagi kami juga, karena proyek kami yang didanai oleh pemerintah Jepang ini salah satu prioritasnya adalah membangun di kapasitas pemangku kepentingan termasuk pemerintah BLK untuk mengembangkan program keterampilan digital, termasuk juga mempilotkan, dan salah satu sektor yang akan kita juga antisipasi adalah sektor yang memang cukup berkembang, terutama menghadapi COVID dan juga menghadapi revolusi industri 4.0. Terima kasih, saya stop di sini. Selamat berlokakarya. Terima kasih Nia.
Baik, terima kasih banyak Mas Taufik. Saya memberikan waktu kepada Pak Dimas. Silakan Pak untuk memperkenalkan diri terlebih dahulu. Pak Dimas Agung Prasetyo ini adalah Kepala UPT TIK dari Universitas Terbuka, salah satu pembicara kita hari ini. Silakan Pak.
Halo, selamat pagi teman-teman semua. Terima kasih atas kesempatannya. Kembali nama saya Dimas Agung Prasetyo. Saya bergabung di UT sejak tahun 2003. Dan kemudian bertugas di pusat komputer waktu itu. Nah, saat ini saya menjabat sebagai kepala UPT TIK di UT. Nah, salah satu tupoksi kami adalah mengembangkan dan merawat sistem e-learning yang ada di UT. Jadi sampai saat ini kami sudah memiliki sekitar 170.000 mahasiswa UT yang mengikuti e-learning, sedangkan total dari mahasiswa UT sendiri sudah mencapai sekitar 300.000. Jadi terima kasih atas undangannya. Kami senang berbagi pengalaman kami dalam menyelenggarakan e-learning. Mudah-mudahan menjadi manfaat buat teman-teman semua. Terima kasih.
Baik, terima kasih banyak Pak Dimas. Pembicara kita yang lain lagi adalah Jesse Roberts dan Alex Lord. So, Jesse, do you want to say something before we start with the presentation?
Terima kasih. Thank you very much for having me. I'm very grateful to be involved in this forum today. I'm the program leader for music industry, sound production and performance at Melbourne Polytechnic. I've been involved with e-learning for over a decade, and we obviously have been transitioning our programs from face-to-face to online very rapidly. And so today I'm going to share some insights about how we've been managing that recently. So I hope that you get something out of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse. Thank you. And Alex, you want to greet the participants?
Hi, everyone. My name is Alex Law. I'm the head of product development at Chisholm Online. I believe my career has spanned about 10 years in different parts of in different e-learning roles, from the technical to the project management to the team leading. So I hope my presentation and the lessons I've learned can help you in your e-learning journey as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Alex. Baik, Bapak Ibu, semuanya sudah memperkenalkan dirinya. Kita langsung mulai saja. Sekali lagi, Bapak Ibu yang baru bergabung bisa absen terlebih dahulu, kemudian bisa memilih mau mendengarkan bahasa Inggris atau bahasa Indonesia dengan mengklik tombol interpretation. Kemudian Bapak Ibu bisa matikan saja video Bapak Ibu supaya koneksi internet Bapak Ibu lebih cepat. Selama presentasi, silakan Bapak Ibu kalau ada pertanyaan langsung saja dituliskan di chat. Nanti kami akan memoderasi pertanyaannya dan kami yang akan melemparkan pertanyaannya kepada para pembicara di akhir presentasi. Demikian Bapak Ibu, mari kita mulai. So, Jesse, Alex, and Pak Dimas, we're going to start with the presentation. So let's start with Alex. You have around 25 minutes for your presentation.
Great, no problem. Thank you for that.
Yes.
I'll try and share now.
Yeah.
Okay, so can you guys give me a thumbs up? You can see that with no problems?
Yes.
Yeah, okay,
yes, we
great.
can see
so,
it clearly. Thank you.
So everyone, thank you again for the opportunity to present to you today. And I hope you guys are all staying safe with the lockdowns and the restrictions in place and with COVID-19. So just again, a quick introduction to myself. My name is Alex Law. I've been with Chisholm Online for the last 6 years now. It's been 6 years in two different roles. So for me, I've been the head of product development at Chisholm Online for the last 2 years. My team take care of building the online courses and the course design and e-learning of the e-learning material as well. And prior to that, I had a more technical role as an education technologist, taking care of the Moodle learning management system. And so for today, I thought I'd give you guys an outline of what I'm presenting. So I'll give you guys a bit of information about Chisholm Online, some information on the product development process that we have at Chisholm Online and with my team. And the main chunk of it will be the challenges and the lessons we've learned over the years on running fully online courses. It's not perfect, but I just hope I can share some of these lessons with you to help you out as well. So just a little bit of information about Chisholm Online. We started back in 2014 with about 5 qualifications in certificates and diplomas. And we've now expanded to 17 accredited qualifications in a few different industries: health, business, education, and building and construction as well. So like most schools, we have 4 terms or 4 study periods a year, and each one of those, they break up into 10-week terms as well. Now, with the team at Chisholm Online, there are three main teams that help support the students. So there I am in the middle, product development team. Hello. So with the product development team, we develop the course content and the assessments and get them ready for online delivery. But we also have two very important areas as well. The student engagement team, they take care of the student from enrollment all the way up until graduation. And then lastly, we have the teaching and learning team. There's about 50 teachers that train and facilitate online, fully online. They run weekly webinar sessions, just like this one here on Zoom, and keep the student going, keep the student engaged. And they also support and grade the assessments as they lead the students through those 10 weeks. Now, not too sure how much you guys have heard of the ADDIE model. So with my team, we go through the ADDIE model of instructional design when we're creating and designing our courses. So I won't go too in depth with this one. If you need more information, I've posted a link here regarding the ADDIE model. But the idea with the ADDIE model is we spend a lot of time in the analysis and the planning stage just to make sure we get things correct. We need to find out information about the learner, the type of learner they are, whether there are government requirements, whether there are industry requirements, and also, very importantly, technical requirements as well. And so we spend quite a bit of time during the analysis phase before we get to any of the design and development. And so hopefully towards the end of the development, we have an evaluation phase where we get feedback. We continually get feedback from different stakeholders, from the students, from even the teachers that are facilitating the courses. And even during the development process, when we're building the courses, this stuff can go around in circles quite often if we find out there's more information or there's a new government policy that has changed recently. So we would go back to this quite a few times before to make sure we get everything right. Now, the next few slides, I'll be going through some of the challenges we've faced over the years in the fully online learning environment. Some of this stuff will hopefully be useful to you, and some of it may not work in your situation. But I hope that you'll find some of it useful and that you can take back to your organization to implement. So the first one for us is, how do you keep students engaged in an online environment? We've got a lot of very busy mums who want to gain another qualification, but they're not able to sit down, in a classroom environment for a very long time. They've got kids, they've got maybe other jobs going on, and they've got other commitments as well. So, how do we keep the students interested? How do we keep them engaged? Well, first of all, we try and design mainly for adult learners. Adult learners, they're looking for very practical material. They're looking for, they want to build on their experience. They want relevant information that will help them, hopefully get a job in their chosen industry. So we always have to keep that in the back of our minds. We used to have quite large interactive content, which would take, let's say, an hour or two to read. Over the years, we've shortened those activities and made them very small, so that if they're on a lunch break or if they are waiting in the car, they can do a little bit of study every now and then. We also try to provide real world examples where it relates to their job, it relates to their industry. We can give them a big textbook, but if it doesn't give them real world examples, then it's not much use. We also make sure to continually provide support from the teachers and also our course advisors. Some students, it might be their first time studying in 10, 20 years. It could be their first time studying online. So we just want to make sure that we're supporting the students and making sure we stay in touch as well. For some students, online learning can be very isolating, and it can be a very scary experience. So we always want to have a face for our online courses. And the last point also is, getting their feedback. We want to make sure that, our resources, our courses, they're not perfect, but we always want to hear from the learner, what their experience was like and how we can improve as well. And so the next one on the next slide, I'm talking about some students that live in remote areas, or maybe they don't have an internet connection. How can the students access their materials offline? So for us, for Chisholm and Chisholm Online, we've always used Moodle as our learning platform. It also comes with the benefit of a Moodle app that allows learners to download the course material when they're in a Wi-Fi hotspot and study the material even offline. So this works for things like the resources, the quizzes, and just any of the assessments as well. For webinar recordings, our teachers, during those 10 weeks, they run weekly Zoom webinars on the topics with the students. But of course, sometimes the students aren't able to attend the session live. So we always aim to make the webinar recordings available to the students 24 to 48 hours after the live recording. And so we've trained up our teachers to do that and to make sure that they provide those recordings in a timely manner. Sometimes if the students live in remote areas, they might not have the best internet connection. We help locate decent Wi-Fi hotspots or Wi-Fi locations, even asking them to come into the campus library if they're nearby, just so that they can access internet from those locations as well. And the last option, which is the file sharing option, we've had some students that were studying from prison and they had very limited access to the internet. So at times we've also had to offer a Dropbox or a USB, even a mailing option, just to provide the materials to those students. And in terms of teachers, how do we support teachers facilitate fully online courses? A number of our teachers, they've never facilitated online before. They've never taught online, and so we want to make that transition as easy as possible for them. They may have years of experience in their field, and we just need to give them those extra tools and skills to facilitate online. So a few ways we've done that is by developing what we call a teacher toolkit, or a resource area, which has all the how-to guides, all the information the teacher needs to get started with Chisholm Online. This includes just a quick how-to guide on how to run webinar sessions, how to message students, how to support the students when they're fully online. We also provide a code of conduct on things like online behavior, social media policies, so that the teachers know what to expect and the students know what to expect in terms of behavior. The internet can be a very angry place, and there can be a lot of negative comments coming from a lot of different people. So we always want to make sure that teachers and students understand the policies, the behavior policies when they're studying with Chisholm Online. and it sort of gives that support to the student, to the teacher as well. We also put out the expectations of the teachers. We want to make sure that they provide an introduction to the students. All we do is, if they're running a new course, to use their phone, record themselves for 2 minutes to introduce themselves and about themselves, something a bit maybe personal, their hobbies, and their experience in the industry. So if it's a new accounting teacher, maybe they're running an accounting practice. Other expectations include how quickly they will respond to students. Usually it's between 24 to 48 hours, letting them know their availability. A lot of our teachers, they also have other full-time jobs, and they're working for Chisholm Online on a part-time or a casual basis. So they may have other full jobs here and there, but we always ask the teachers to provide their availability when it comes to responding to students. And just like with the previous slide on keeping learners engaged and getting learner feedback, we also want to get that feedback from the teachers as well. What are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? What can we improve with our courses, with our materials? Is there a way to speed up or make it easier for the students to go through the resources? And we also need them to monitor the student progress as well. So, 10 weeks can be quite a long time for some students. Maybe in the first week or two, the students will start very strong, but going into week 4, week 5, it gets very quiet. So we always want to make sure that the teachers are in contact with those students as well. And so, as you can see, those are a few faces of the teachers working from home, and this is before COVID-19 as well. So majority of them, they only have their webcam or their smartphone. So we just ask them, record themselves, provide an introduction. I hope I'm going okay on time. So with the next one, it's how do we build interactive resources in a timely manner? So this will mainly be determined by how much time do you have. So for Chisholm Online, we build mainly in Moodle activities and Articulate 360. If you need the links to the software to find out more, you can find them on the bottom right of the slide. We found that over the years, building straight into Moodle, the learning platform, and using these Articulate software tools provides us a good balance of interactivity as well as speed. I know lots of times organizations might just use their learning platform as a place to put Word documents or PDFs, but if you do need to provide that extra level of interactivity, this is a good place to start. And also, have a think about how are you capturing the classroom activities. A lot of the knowledge is sitting, with the teacher. And so in the classroom, they'll be asking questions, going through activities with the students face to face. So how are you capturing that online? So for us, when we work with teachers, when we work with SMEs, my team captures all those questions and all those activities that the teacher would go through in a face-to-face environment. Those end up being created as forums or blog posts where students can collaborate with each other. They can share their own experience. They can provide their own opinions. And also consider, how much maintenance will these resources take? If you build in Word in a document, it's very easy to maintain, but there's not as much interactivity. Now, if you're building into one of these rapid authoring tools, you'll need to take a bit more time and in setting it up, in maintaining it as well. And have a think about what happens when your resources are outdated. How quickly can you update your material? So I found with my team and with the teachers, that building with straight into the learning platform, and my opinion, Articulate 360, it provides a good balance of interactivity and speed and maintenance. And so I'm heading into the assessment world. So, what are the question I would ask is, what are the options when it comes to fully online assessments? Now, for us, we've started off in our early years with, assignments, file submissions, automatic quizzes. And over the years, we've expanded into a few other types of assessments, including case scenarios and role plays, and even role plays through Zoom webinar sessions. We had one course or one unit. It was called Managing Difficult Conversations. And one of the tasks was the student needed to role play with one other person on a difficult conversation in their working environment. But the student didn't have anyone to role play with. So we organized for the teacher to schedule a session with that student and act as that third party to run the role play. And we've also started getting into simulated environments and virtual tours as well. So if anyone has used Google Maps and you click on the little man to have a look at the environment around you, that's the type of photos we use. So, and if you want a demo during the Q&A session, please let me know. Otherwise, you can click on the link here to get an idea of one of our emergency evacuations in an aged care center looks like. So in this example, an elderly gentleman has set the hairdryer on fire. So, and you have to look around the environment and select the right items and help the elderly patient out of their room. And so if you also would like to have further look into the software, you can find them on the bottom right as well. Other examples that are coming up with the simulated environments, I'm scheduled to go out with one of my teachers to take photos of a building site, and the plan is to use that as a WHS or a safety inspection in that environment. And hopefully that'll be up and running in the next month or two. I believe this is the last one. The last one I'll bring up for today is, capturing information from industry experts. Like I was saying, with adult learners, they want information that is relevant for them, that is relevant for their job and their careers. So, how do we do that? We do industry consultations with leaders and experts in that industry. When we're developing and planning for the course, we want to discuss the content assessments to make sure that it's relevant with what they're doing in the industry. And also over time, as the course is running, like I said, we get student feedback, teacher feedback, and we schedule reviews of those courses to help and make sure they're continuously updated. Sometimes if teachers are, if the industry consultants are happy to do so, we might even schedule video interviews with them and audio podcasts as well. And again, it's nothing fancy. It's just, one of the team members taking their phone or their video camera, sit it down in a room and record the experiences of that consultant. And we may also run question and answer sessions so that students can ask the expert directly and get that information directly from that leader. Now, so those were some of the challenges we faced over the years in the online environment. And so for Chisholm Online to succeed, we had to focus on the learner, primarily on the learner. So, sorry, if I go back to this chart here with the teams, no one of these teams is more important than the other. All three of these areas have to work together to help support the student in different ways. So for us, it's always been a focus on the learner or the student. And in saying that, we also try and make the courses as industry relevant as possible. We allow more time for planning, for stakeholder engagement, and even testing and experimenting. Some of the software or the technical solutions they never work perfectly. So we need time to test those before we present it to the student. Again, feedback and continuous improvement is always ongoing. We have the mindset of, we are never perfect, but we always want to improve our resources. And the last one is also, we want to develop the learning design capability of our development team, of our teachers, of our staff, so that they can develop more meaningful courses, more relevant courses to the student. Okay, so that's the end of my presentation. Just wanted to say thank you and terima kasih for the opportunity to present. I hope you found that helpful, and hopefully you have some questions for me as well.
Thank you very much, Alex. Thank you. That was a very interesting presentation. Jadi Bapak Ibu, tadi kita sudah mendengarkan presentasi dari Alex mengenai pembelajaran daring di Chisholm Online bagaimana, dan saya lihat sudah ada banyak pertanyaan. Tapi sebelum kita lanjut ke pertanyaan, saya akan persilakan pembicara yang berikutnya. So Jessie, you can now present your material. So the floor is yours.
Terima kasih. Thank you. So just to give you a quick background about me, so I managed a registered training organisation for 5 years and was responsible for implementing their learning management system, which was Moodle, and I've been working for Melbourne Polytechnic for the last 5 years managing their music performance and sound production programs. So I'm just going to share my screen and hop into this presentation. Are you seeing that okay? Let's check, hopefully you're seeing, oops, let's try this, yeah, okay, very good.
To change to presentation.
Okay, beautiful, thank you. So I will be focusing on course design and delivery, given that our context at the moment for delivery is influenced by COVID-19 and some of its challenges. Today, particularly, I thought I would explore a case study of rapid transition from face-to-face learning to remote learning, as that's basically what we've just been undertaking in our particular area, and explore the challenges and opportunities associated with that. So just to provide a little background for you, this is our current program offering. So the area that I'm primarily responsible for, well, is all these qualifications apart from our higher ed qualifications, the Bachelor of Music and Bachelor of Songwriting. Our VET programs are delivered across 2 campuses.
Sorry, Jessie. Sorry.
Are you getting my slideshow?
Yeah, but the slides are not moving.
Okay, hang on. Try this one, sorry.
And it's not on the projection format yet.
Just a moment.
Yeah.
Is this working?
Yes, now it's working.
That? Okay, sorry about that. There we go.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, beautiful. Okay, so this is our current course offering. They're music performance courses and sound production courses. They're creative technical courses and vocational in focus. We also run in We have a partnership with Enter Audio House in Bandung, Indonesia, and we're delivering 2 qualifications with them. They're our industry and education partners, and so they're quite familiar with some of the challenges that you're all facing at the moment. Just to provide you a little context of what our current use of blended learning is. So all programs use Moodle, but we're primarily face-to-face delivery. You'll see the performance program uses some file submission, but they're still using paper-based assessments. Our sound production programs are almost all electronic, using file submission and assessment via Moodle, and there's no paper-based assessment. In our programs in Bandung, they're primarily face-to-face. There's a Moodle site for each of the courses, and they use file submission for assessment, and they also use some paper-based assessment. What I wanted to explore with you is basically our process for preparing what are primarily face-to-face courses and transitioning them into remote delivery. So the way we did that was first analyze our delivery using a traffic light system to analyze each assessment task in each subject to assess whether it could be easily converted online, which is green, orange, if it can be delivered online with some modification, or red, it has components that require specialist equipment or group assessment. So that might be live performance in a venue with particular technical equipment. We also analysed how many weeks we could do this remote delivery, how long it could be sustained for, and what percentage of the course could remain online. Just to provide you an overview of the subjects of the 2 courses. So the courses I'm going to look at are the Certificate 4 in Music Industry Sound Production and Certificate 4 Music Industry Performance. So you can see under the qualification headings, there are a number of subject headings. Okay, so we analysed all of these subjects for those 2 particular courses, and using the traffic light system, we went through and identified our challenges. So you can see that the industry subject was ready to be delivered online. So it was all through Moodle, all electronic resources. All of those in orange were either dependent on particular software access for students or hardware access, and they required some modification. You'll also see that there's some with the 2 stars that have modified group activity. So some of the things like band had to be modified to go online. And you'll see the subjects in red, studio production and live sound, they require specialist equipment. So specialist expensive technology that students don't have at home. Okay, so this was our traffic light process. So after our analysis, we looked at actually modifying the delivery. So some of the subjects that were research, based on research analysis, writing or software, theory-based subjects didn't require change. Others, we changed the delivery sequence of those, bringing assessments forward that could be done online. We also prioritized the completion of subjects that could be done online to try and make room for practical assessment when we return to campus. For some of those subjects, we had to focus on the content delivery and defer the assessment to later in the semester, where we also condensed the practical skill development and assessment component so it could be completed in a shorter period of time because the theory had been delivered. So there was a whole piece on preparing our staff, which was about rapidly upskilling them. Thankfully, they all used Moodle previously, so they all had an understanding of Moodle, which was great. However, we used Zoom primarily to deliver all of our classes. So they needed to trial and experiment with Zoom extensively, practicing with each other to deliver classes to develop that skill set, which is entirely new skill set, really, delivering online. We also explored workflows for managing the recorded material from those Zoom sessions. We looked at how they manage collaboration and co-teaching as well. I'll talk a bit more about this a little bit later. So then we had to look at how we prepared our students to go online. So the initial process was to assess their barriers to learning at home. So we issued a survey to all of our students to get a clear understanding of what access to technology they had at home. Did they have the internet that was stable? Did they have a reliable computer? Did they have particular software or keyboards, etc. at home? We were also fortunate that we had an opportunity to orient our students to the Zoom virtual classroom while on campus. So we brought students into computer labs and we oriented them so they understood how to operate in that online space. In our area, we use music production software, and we worked with some distributors of that software to provide temporary licenses to our students so that they could go off campus. And we had to issue other resources to them. Some people who identified that they couldn't study off campus, didn't have reliable access to internet, etc., we made special spaces for them to study on campus. So that's just a little bit of our kind of preparation journey from all face-to-face to all online. So what I want to look at here is just some of the key drivers of course design, which I'm just breaking down into areas that the learner, the trainer, the learning environment, and the vocational outcome or the training need, and just have a look at some of the challenges and solutions and supports that exist in those spaces. So really the challenges for learner and trainer are very similar for remote learning. So that's their access to technology, that's their digital literacy, their ability to use computers proficiently. For the learner, their ability to learn online, and for the trainer, their ability to engage students online. Online works for many, doesn't work for everybody. It takes some work. The other thing that's challenging is the actual home learning or teaching environment, given that many people are supporting their children's remote learning at home, where their children are in secondary or primary school. There's also additional challenges for the learner and trainer where there might be some job loss or loss of income of the spouse or partner. So these are the kind of disruptive factors. So some of the supports and solutions is orientation. That's what I talked about before, addressing those barriers to their remote learning, inducting them, making sure they have the technology that they need to learn remotely. The other thing that we need to look at is the modified learning program, modifying some of the learning materials for online videos, recording lessons. Also changing the kind of delivery where you have shorter, more engaging classes and then some one-on-one support or small group support. The other thing that we found particularly important is also to provide that language literacy and numeracy support and library support and counselling support. And we're able to do all of those things remotely, which is terrific. We also found that increased communication from the teacher was particularly important. And again, they're on campus if they couldn't study at home. So the supports for the trainer, professional development in online delivery is critical for people who haven't done it extensively before. It's a whole new skill set and requires development. I'll look at that a bit more later too. The provision of technology and technical support for those staff working remotely. Teachers also need additional time to develop their resources and develop new skills. The other thing that we found it was helpful for supporting our trainers was actually bringing in industry guests, which we can't do anyway, but we were able to bring additional industry guests in because we had to focus on that engagement factor. And then the other thing that we looked at is, things that can help is modified timetable to assist remote teaching. So that might be teachers teaching at a different time than they typically would because of disruptions they have at home. Just having a look at some of the challenges around the learning environment. So technology is our primary challenge area where it needs to be reliable, accessible, and cost effective. Some people can't access it because of the cost of the technology or the reliability of service. another challenge is the actual ability to assimilate information in the online environment. We find that some people with learning difficulties struggle to assimilate multiple screens and multiple types of information on a computer screen. That's difficult for them. So there's also some accessibility considerations in our learning environment. Then we also look at our physical spaces and that physical distancing in our training spaces. Group participation in a remote environment is challenging, or in a distanced environment is challenging, and also workplace learning. Some of the supports and solutions for that. So we basically were exploring free and cheap technology options. There are many available in different areas. One of the things that we need to explore is whether you provide that technology to the student to ensure they have it, or that you stipulate a minimum requirement for them to study. The learning environment is a more technical one and requires technical support. Obviously, we can pre-record and record lessons for students. There are some accessibility assessments tools within Moodle that help us adjust our content to make sure it's accessible to a variety of learners. And we can also modify our training spaces, which I'll look at more in a moment. And then simulation, so where real work environment is not possible. So basically our music venues are closed, and so we're looking at having to have simulation gigs. So some people are doing their gigs from home as opposed to being in a venue. So the other area is just the vocational outcome and training need. So a lot of the industries have been significantly disrupted, as you're all aware, and they're changing their training needs. So the other challenges there is that the workplace, as I said, aren't available to accommodate students, such as music venues. There's, I guess, some uncertainty about what some of these industries will look like over the next couple of years. And there's some also uncertainty about how and what government supports are provided to some of these industry sectors. So there's some challenges there. And so really the key things that we can do in this space is be working closely with industry sectors to follow those emerging trends, hopefully be pivoting or changing our practices already, and also to lobby governments for support for these industry sectors. So particularly, I guess, an example that's relevant to us is that live event production has moved into a live streaming format. And that there's also some industry bodies that are working to develop live event guidelines. Okay, so what I want to look at is, so basically we transitioned our courses from face-to-face, all remote, and then back to blended, and have ended up with a modified course design. And through that process, we've been able to explore new course designs. So obviously there is an incentive for all of us to work out what we can put online and make that a valuable offering for students. So you can see on the left-hand side the two existing courses using those traffic lights processes before, and through our modifications we've identified that we could deliver a new qualification that's almost entirely online, that's probably for a slightly different audience that basically wants to learn from home, make music from home, and would prefer perhaps some solo performance as opposed to group performance. So this just gives you, I suppose, we're looking at the opportunities coming out of these changes that we've trialled. So given that we are living in a pretty disrupted space at the moment, it's really important that we plan for continuity in our program delivery. At the moment, we're facing a particularly complex challenge where some students are reluctant to travel to campus because they may have illness, or they might have poor immune in their family. We also have a challenge where staff or students, if they have symptoms of illness, they cannot attend the campus, but they're still maybe well enough to actually teach or to learn. We're also facing the challenge where students or staff might need to be isolated, and we're also finding that our restrictions have some level of fluctuation. So in this context, we're finding that educators are put in this position where they're trying to facilitate face-to-face learning vocational learning with their students, as well as having a remote learning offering simultaneously. So there's some measures that we can put in place, which you're probably aware of already, which is just how we prepare our online materials, preparing lessons for illness or absence, pre-recording material or recording lessons that can be accessed at another time, and also importantly, preparing structured self-directed learning for the student. However, there's a couple of other areas that I'd like to explore with you, which is really around things that we can do in the program structure and in the environment that supports some continuity. So one of those is a combined campus timetable, looking at how co-teaching works. And the other is looking at a dual mode delivery where you're doing simultaneous real-time face-to-face and remote learning. So as I mentioned, we have programs across 2 physical campuses in Melbourne, and we would have the same subject offering across those 2 campuses. Going online meant that we could have a common virtual classroom for these students. And we did this for a few reasons, and there's some benefits to it. So one of those benefits is to reduce duplication of delivery. So we weren't delivering the same class twice. This gave teachers more time to prepare engaging online content. We also did it so that we had continuity of teaching in case of illness or disruption of technology at home, or their kids learning at home. So we had 2 teachers assigned to a class at the same time, so for some redundancy. So we also compensated for increased teaching requirements for when you get back to campus and you have to have smaller groups, so a higher student to teacher ratio. This also enabled us to explore some collaboration and co-teaching across the student cohorts. So this is a really effective thing that we've done, and it's actually, we're retaining this consolidated timetable as we return to campus. So I just want to talk about co-teaching in Zoom just quickly. So for any of you that have done it, it's really like trying to fly a plane while everybody else is trying to fly their plane. And it can be quite challenging for teachers, particularly in a technology area where you might be managing multiple different audio and video inputs into your computer while you're trying to deliver your class. So one of the things that we've found is that's worked well with our co-delivery is having a primary teacher that delivers the majority of the class content, and your support teacher, which is effectively like your moderator, that engages in a chat, monitors the waiting room and the student participation, can queue material, provide links to support material, troubleshoots and mutes and unmutes students, for example. The other thing that we've found particularly effective in our Zoom teaching is the use of breakout rooms. So what we've found when we have co-teaching going on, that we can actually stream students to be covered by a particular teacher. So you might find half of your students have one kind of particular challenge that can be supported, and the other half can be supported by the other teacher. And the other thing is to be able to provide that individual support. So sometimes you can break an individual student out into a breakout room and work with their specific needs and give them specific feedback. And we've found all of those particularly effective teaching tools. So I just wanted to kind of finalize looking at this dual mode delivery, which is really where you're managing a face-to-face class and you're using various integrated systems to provide that to Zoom. So just the pictures I've got here, you can see kind of on the left, you've just got a basic kind of conferencing system which has a camera and built-in audio device that just plugs in via USB to your computer, but allows you to capture the teacher and the whiteboard and their projection screen all at the same time. On the right, it's a little hard to see, but there is a camera up on the ceiling, and so that camera is an integrated system and it's capturing everything that the teacher is doing. So there are a couple of kind of options for providing that simultaneous delivery. And the last one is a more complicated one, but this is really looking at how we provide face-to-face learning in a distanced environment as well as providing that remote delivery. So in this particular instance, we have a theatre where we deliver our live performances from. And so that one live performance in the centre can actually provide learning activity for multiple groups of students in different locations. So we're using digital audio network to take that performance audio into different spaces for our sound production students, and that our performance students engage in this, where you have some who are actually on campus, some who are performing, some who are in the audience, and some who are participating in a Zoom audience at home. And the other thing that we've been able to do is engage with our secondary students. So our Vet in Schools programs are the Certificate 3 programs for Year 11 and 12 students, and they've been able to participate in this learning as well. So you can see there's, I guess this is kind of an exciting model that's a little challenging to implement and quite technology dependent, but I guess this innovation has been forced due to our condition and is excellent for our training outcomes. So that is where I will leave it. Terima kasih. I look forward to your questions in a moment.
Okay, thank you very much, Jesse. That's a very comprehensive and interesting presentation, particularly on music. So that's something that will surely be of interest of us, because we never had a presenter from the music industry before. That was very interesting. So I'm going to give
first. Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm going to give the floor to the next speaker, Pak Bapak Ibu. Sekarang kita dengarkan presentasi berikutnya, Pak Dimas. Silahkan Pak, presentasinya. Waktunya sekitar 25 menit ya Pak ya.
Iya, sebentar. Sudah muncul dengan baik, Bu Widyasti?
Sudah, Pak.
Oke. Selamat siang, teman-teman. Terima kasih buat waktunya. Izinkan saya share pengalaman sedikit mengenai bagaimana kami di UT itu mengembangkan bahan ajar multimedia, dan sedikit mengenai profil P2M2 UT, karena sebetulnya unit yang bertanggung jawab dalam proses pengembangan bahan ajar di UT sendiri adalah P2M2. Sedangkan kami, UPTetik, itu lebih pada pengembangan dan pemeliharaan infrastruktur teknologi, termasuk juga infrastruktur e-learning. Jadi sebelum kita biasanya mulai mengembangkan bahan ajar, pertama kita harus aware dulu bahwa banyak sekali institusi yang mengembangkan produk-produk multimedia, namun kurang maksimal dalam implementasinya. Jadi ada beberapa faktor yang harus diwaspadai. Yang pertama adalah perencanaan yang tidak memadai. Ini biasanya diakibatkan karena masalah time frame ya. Ada kebutuhan mendadak. Sebagai contoh misalnya kayak kemarin COVID semester lalu, di mana ada kebutuhan mendadak suatu institusi untuk merubah proses belajar yang biasanya face to face kemudian menjadi jarak jauh. Yang membedakan dua konsep ini kan sebetulnya kalau face to face itu kan sifatnya bisa spontan, sedangkan untuk pendidikan jarak jauh itu semua materi itu harus direncanakan sebelumnya, sebelum nantinya di delivery pada proses pembelajaran. Jadi kadangkala kedalaman materi yang dikembangkan atau kualitas materi yang dikembangkan itu tidak memadai karena kita tidak punya cukup waktu dalam mengidentifikasi kebutuhan ataupun identifikasi target audiens kita. Terus kemudian yang perlu diperhatikan adalah ketidakcukupan dukungan. Ini dalam artian adalah dukungan teknis. Jadi ketika kita menggunakan teknologi, kita harus aware bahwa pengguna teknologi, baik itu pengajar maupun si siswa, kemungkinan akan mengalami masalah dalam mengimplementasikan atau menggunakan teknologi tersebut. Jadi, penting bagi sebuah institusi untuk menyediakan semacam channel dukungan teknis ketika pengajar maupun si siswa mengalami masalah dalam proses pembelajaran yang menggunakan teknologi. Jadi, banyak sekolah atau institusi yang biasanya ya mendelivery e-learning, konten e-learning begitu saja tanpa disertai dukungan teknis atau customer service yang cukup. Jadi katakanlah pada suatu sesi pembelajaran tiba-tiba ada banyak permasalahan yang terjadi, terus kemudian mahasiswa itu bertanya, dukungan teknisnya mungkin kewalahannya, jadi dia tidak bisa menjawab tepat waktu sehingga proses pembelajaran itu menjadi ya motivasi si mahasiswa itu menjadi berkurang sehingga efektivitas proses belajar menjadi jelek. Terus juga yang perlu dipertimbangkan adalah kurang mudahnya akses. Jadi ketika kita ingin mengembangkan suatu konten multimedia, kita harus identifikasi audiens kita seperti apa, cara mereka akses ke teknologi itu bagaimana, dan bagaimana strategi kita untuk mensiasati hal itu. Jadi dalam satu semester terakhir ini, saya pribadi melihat ada beberapa proses delivery pembelajaran yang menggunakan teknologi yang sangat canggih, itu gagal. Tapi saya juga bisa melihat ada proses perkuliahan yang cukup menggunakan WA Group, tetapi menjadi sangat efektif. Jadi jadi kita jangan terpancing atau jangan terfokus pada bagaimana dalam teknologinya, tetapi kita harus memastikan bahwa konten yang akan kita delivery ke mahasiswa itu tersampaikan, apapun alatnya. Terus kemudian juga masalah evaluasi, mungkin banyak yang melakukan evaluasi sekedar hanya mengirimkan kuesioner atau semacam wawancara tanpa melihat kedalaman materi dan hasil asesmen dari si siswa. Jadi kadang-kadang kita harus punya waktu lebih untuk melihat hal itu, kemudian kita melakukan modifikasi, apakah kontennya perlu dirubah atau jangan-jangan strategi delivery-nya yang kurang pas. Terus yang paling penting adalah tiadanya standar. Jadi ketika kita mengembangkan suatu konten, katakanlah konten video, adalah satu aspek penting agar kita comply pada suatu standar yang disepakati bersama. Misalnya pada saat ini konten video yang biasa dikembangkan adalah formatnya MP4. Kalau kita menggunakan format yang katakanlah pakai DivX atau MP3, mungkin tentunya tidak pas ya. Dan ada kemungkinan bahwa si audiens tidak bisa mengakses konten belajar itu dengan baik. Termasuk juga untuk standar pengembangan. Jadi ada banyak standar-standar pengembangan yang bisa dipakai, baik tadi yang sudah disampaikan pada sesi sebelumnya, menggunakan ED model, atau menggunakan Kirkpatrick model, atau menggunakan motivational model, apapun bisa dipakai, atau bahkan kombinasi dari semua standar itu. Tetapi dalam suatu institusi ada baiknya kita menggunakan standar yang sama untuk mengembangkan konten belajar agar ada semacam keseragaman format konten, sehingga memudahkan baik si mahasiswa maupun pengajar untuk mempelajari konten tersebut. Nah, salah satu aspek lain yang penting harus diperhatikan dalam proses pengembangan tentunya adalah biaya dan durasi. Ini adalah masalah klasik ya. Jadi, ketika saya ingin mengembangkan suatu konten, kira-kira saya butuh resource seperti apa sih? Ini dari perspektif manajemen institusi, berapa sih biaya yang saya harus investasikan? Berapa orang sih yang harus saya investasikan untuk mengembangkan suatu konten? Nah, ini adalah mungkin pointer-pointer yang bisa membantu si pengambil keputusan untuk memperkirakan biaya. Jadi intinya tanpa detail itu kita nggak akan bisa untuk memperkirakan biaya dan durasi pengembangan dengan baik. Jadi yang pertama tentunya adalah kebutuhan organisasi, deadline-nya kapan, apakah kita punya cukup waktu untuk mengembangkan konten ini. Terus kemudian desainnya, model pengembangan Anda seperti apa, misalnya apakah Anda ingin mengembangkan video lecture, apakah Anda ingin sekedar menggunakan PPT, apakah di dalamnya perlu ada interaktivitas, nah ini perlu diperkirakan di awal proses pengembangan. Termasuk juga kompleksitas isi, apakah materi yang ingin dikembangkan itu the whole course, seluruh mata kuliah, atau hanya potongan-potongan dari konten yang memang ingin diperdalam karena mungkin tingkat kesulitannya tinggi, atau bagaimana gitu kan. Termasuk juga dalam konten tersebut seberapa banyak interaksi yang diperlukan. Jadi karena mengembangkan interaksi dalam konten multimedia ini biasanya cukup mahal ya, karena biasanya ada butuh animasi, ada butuh simulasi. Nah, ini juga perlu kita perhitungkan untuk menghitung cost, berapa power yang disediakan, dan kira-kira berapa waktu yang dikembangkan, yang dibutuhkan untuk membuat suatu model simulasi tersebut. Terus kemudian model belajarnya apakah berbasis gamification atau seperti permainan, atau model pembelajarannya adalah percabangan, di mana setiap mahasiswa bisa belajar mengikuti karakter mereka, mengikuti pace-nya mereka, atau materi belajar ini harus dikembangkan secara linear, berurutan dari bab 1, bab 2, bab 3, dan seterusnya. Nah, ini juga perlu dipertimbangkan, juga melihat dari target audiens yang kita harapkan. Misalnya, katakanlah pembelajaran online untuk level SMA atau SMK, biasanya karena anak-anak masih senang bermain game, akan mungkin lebih membantu jika model pembelajarannya mensimulasikan konsep permainan, ya, gamification. Jadi ada semacam challenge yang harus diselesaikan oleh si siswa. Terus kemudian juga yang perlu diperhitungkan adalah jenis media. Seberapa banyak media apa yang ingin kita integrasikan ke dalam konten tersebut. Apakah hanya video saja, apakah hanya animasi, apakah ada simulasi, atau media-media lain. Terus kemudian kita juga harus mempertimbangkan jenis evaluasi, model evaluasinya seperti apa, apakah hanya sekedar pilihan berganda, apakah hanya sekedar essay, atau mungkin jenis evaluasi lain seperti drag and drop, dan lain sebagainya. Terus berikutnya yang perlu dipertimbangkan adalah nanti bagaimana cara kita mengembangkan, atau alat-alat apa yang harus kita investasikan untuk mengembangkan konten ini. Jadi misalnya katakanlah untuk animasi Anda butuh Adobe software, tentunya kita juga harus memikirkan berapa biaya yang harus kita keluarkan untuk membeli perangkat tersebut. Atau misalnya katakanlah kita ingin menggunakan software gratis, kita harus identifikasi software apa yang ingin kita pakai, dan kita harus juga memastikan bahwa resource yang kita punya, manpower yang kita punya, bisa mengoperasikan perangkat itu dengan baik. Terus yang paling terakhir adalah bagaimana kita mendelivery konten belajar itu, apakah melalui LMS seperti Moodle, atau konten itu kita delivery pada situasi tatap muka langsung menggunakan Zoom atau Teams atau apapun, atau kita bisa delivery menggunakan WhatsApp atau Telegram. Jadi kita juga harus persiapan itu semua. Nah, sedangkan untuk menghitung pengembangan sebetulnya ada banyak cara. Ini adalah salah satu contoh, kira-kira berapa sih waktu yang dikembangkan, waktu yang dibutuhkan untuk mengembangkan suatu materi. Misalnya dengan produk asinkron sederhana, misalnya HTML dengan sedikit gambar, grafis, itu kurang lebih membutuhkan 117 jam. Untuk kegiatan sinkron sederhana, halaman dengan halaman statis dan teks grafik itu 86 jam. Terus kalau misalnya ada sedikit penambahan interaktivitas, misalnya dengan Flash, JavaScript, atau animated content, kita butuh sekitar 191 jam. Atau kita juga makin lama makin kita perlengkap, misalnya yang terakhir ini misalnya sinkron, kompleks, ditambah audio, video, simulasi interaktif, ini proses pengembangannya bisa berjalan sekitar 222 jam. Nah, apakah 220 jam ini linear? Tentunya enggak. Jam ini bisa dibagi berdasarkan man hours dari masing-masing job function atau role. Jadi katakanlah pada proses ide itu cukup butuh untuk satu orang SME, subject matter expert. Kemudian untuk proses pengembangannya, misalnya kita mungkin membutuhkan 3 atau 4 videographer atau animator. Nah, itu kita bisa bagi. Jadi sebetulnya waktu realnya bisa kurang dari 222 jam karena ada beberapa pekerjaan yang bisa kita lakukan paralel. Terus bagaimana kita mengembangkan konten ini? Sebetulnya tadi ada banyak seperti yang saya sampaikan. Sebagai contoh, saya menggunakan pendekatan waterfall yang biasa digunakan pada proses pengembangan sistem aplikasi juga. Mohon maaf, model grafisnya terbalik. Harusnya kalau waterfall kan dari atas ke bawah, tapi ini saya membuatnya agak flip dari bawah ke atas. Jadi secara umum ada proses analisa, ada proses desain, ada proses persyaratan teknis, pengembangan isi, produksi dan integrasi isi, implementasi dan evaluasi. Nah, tahapan proses ini secara garis besar sih bisa dibagi menjadi 3 bagian sebetulnya. Ada pertama adalah tentunya pemodelan isi multimedia, terus kemudian pengembangan isi multimedia, dan yang terakhir adalah implementasi isi multimedia. Kalau misalnya pertanyaannya, apakah tahapan ini harus distinktif, harus benar-benar dilakukan satu demi satu? Ya enggak juga. Nanti pada proses berjalan itu bisa cair ya. Jadi nanti saya tunjukkan studi kasus yang ada di UT. Jadi ada beberapa proses yang bisa jadi berhimpitan. Tetapi setidaknya ini bisa dijadikan semacam guidelines kita untuk memandu proses pengembangan dengan cara yang baik lah. Jadi terencana, logikanya dengan pekerjaan yang terencana pastinya juga akan menghasilkan hasil yang lebih baik. Nah, kita mulai dari pemodelan isi multimedia. Jadi salah satu tujuannya pertama tentunya adalah analisis kebutuhan dan pengguna, bagaimana tujuan pembelajaran yang ingin dicapai, terus kemudian kita harus identifikasi pengguna, kurang lebih karakter penggunanya seperti apa, bagaimana sebaran mereka, akses mereka ke perangkat teknologi seperti apa. Nah, ini perlu kita akses lebih lanjut. Nah, caranya mengakses ini bisa menggunakan model seperti wawancara dengan target pengguna, atau menggunakan brainstorming discussion dengan sesama SME, dan instructional design. Intinya adalah aktivitas ini harus mengidentifikasi persyaratan pengguna potensial atau persyaratan konten multimedia dan persyaratan organisasi. Jadi setelah semua ini diperoleh, kemudian harus didokumentasikan, dan kemudian kita masuk ke tahap analisa desain. Jadi desain ini dari informasi yang tadi sudah kita kumpulkan, kemudian kita harus identifikasi kira-kira media-media apa yang ingin kita capai sesuai dengan target pembelajaran. Katakanlah misalnya, untuk aktivitas ini kita cukup dengan video lecture. Untuk aktivitas berikut kita bisa gunakan animasi atau cukup gambar saja, dan lain sebagainya. Jadi intinya kita mulai identifikasi konten-konten yang akan di-develop, dan kemudian media apa yang ingin kita gunakan. Selanjutnya, pada saat proses pengembangan isi multimedia, itu dari sini kita bisa mulai identifikasi job role-nya, jadi stakeholders-nya. Jadi kurang lebih ada beberapa stakeholders yang mungkin terlibat pada proses ini. Yang pertama tentunya adalah ahli bidang studi, biasanya dosen atau SME, orang yang memang memiliki pengetahuan lebih pada materi tersebut. Terus kemudian tentunya adalah programmer. Terus ada desainer interface, layar dan konten, terus kemudian ada desainer grafis, ada pengembang audio video, terus ada semacam pemrogramer untuk melakukan integrasi, dan selanjutnya tentunya adalah seniman untuk melakukan animasi. Nah, pertanyaannya, apakah harus lengkap ini? Tentunya tidak ya, jadi tergantung dari kapasitas dari suatu institusi. Jadi kalau misalnya resource-nya terbatas, beberapa job function ini bisa digabung menjadi satu, atau kita bisa mereduce ragam dari konten multimedia yang ingin kita include-kan ke dalam konten belajar tersebut. Nah, dari job role ini kita bagi peran menjadi seolah-olah menjadi 3 bagian. Pertama, masuk ke persyaratan teknis. Dalam hal ini kita harus memastikan bahwa alat, bahasa, platform yang akan digunakan itu sudah didefinisikan lebih lanjut. Kemudian kita juga harus memastikan ini kira-kira konten ini jika ditaruh di, katakanlah ya misalnya ditaruh di YouTube, berapa sih kecepatan minimal yang dibutuhkan si pengguna agar bisa mengakses dengan baik. Ini juga harus didokumentasikan. Terus kemudian kita masuk ke pengembangan isi, ini dimulai dari pengembangan storyboard, dari konten-konten yang sudah diberikan oleh SME, itu kemudian oleh programmer dan desainer itu mulai dibuat storyboard sebagai framework untuk merakit atau menjahit konten demi konten menjadi suatu pembelajaran yang utuh. Setelah storyboard itu dibuat, kemudian konten-konten itu dikembangkan dari masing-masing job function, misalnya untuk video lecture, SME mungkin bisa menjadi pembicara yang kemudian direkam, terus kemudian untuk animator bisa mulai mengembangkan konten-konten animasi sesuai penempatan pada bahan belajar yang kita desain sebelumnya, terus kemudian audio video juga mulai merekam konten, Dan akhirnya pada level akhir semua konten-konten itu diintegrasikan pada suatu konten yang utuh, dan kemudian tentunya harus dicek kembali dari awal sampai akhir apakah ini sesuai dengan tujuan instruksional awal, tujuan pembelajaran awal. Setelah itu kita mulai masuk ke implementasi tadi seperti yang saya sampaikan. Jadi oke, konten ini sudah jadi, sekarang kita harus deliver ke mahasiswa atau siswa ini melalui apa? Apakah menggunakan Moodle atau LMS? Apakah kita cukup taruh ini di YouTube sebagai self-instructional content atau apa? Terus juga keamanan juga perlu kita perhatikan karena biasanya konten multimedia ini berbiaya cukup mahal. Kita juga harus melihat tujuan institusi, apakah konten ini dikembangkan untuk pengguna luas atau spesifik ke siswa. Kita juga harus perhatikan jangan sampai investasi yang kita keluarkan dengan sangat mahal ini dan konten ini seharusnya didesain untuk si siswa itu bisa diakses oleh orang lain atau bahkan oleh institusi lain. Nah, ini juga perlu kita pertimbangkan. Terakhir, pada saat semua ini selesai di delivery, tentunya perlu ada evaluasi. Jadi ada banyak pendekatan baik dan bagaimana cara melakukan evaluasi. Yang pasti adalah tujuan dari evaluasi ini adalah untuk memastikan bahwa akurasi dan integritas konten pembelajaran ini sesuai dengan tujuan pembelajaran yang dicapai. Apakah mahasiswa atau siswa yang setelah membaca konten ini bisa mengakuisisi skills yang diharapkan. Nah, ada beberapa model yang bisa kita terapkan. Jadi intinya evaluasi ini harus kita lakukan dengan mengakses dari reaksi dari si siswa, proses pembelajaran, dan perilaku mahasiswa setelah proses pembelajaran yang dilakukan, dan tentunya dari hasil evaluasi akhir dari si mahasiswa. Dari sini saya menyarankan untuk yang kegiatan vokasional atau untuk corporate training itu kita bisa menggunakan pendekatan Kirkpatrick karena beliau sudah membuat model yang cocok, model dan instrumen yang cocok digunakan untuk mengevaluasi program-program yang fokus pada peningkatan kemampuan teknis si pembelajar. Jadi ini mungkin bisa saya share, mungkin bisa search di Google, Kirkpatrick itu seperti apa, nah modelnya seperti apa. Nah selanjutnya dari ini saya ingin sedikit share tentang PD2M2. Jadi PD2M2 itu adalah Pusat Produksi Multimedia, UT. Jadi secara umum UT ini memproduksi dua tipe bahan ajar. Yang pertama adalah bahan ajar cetak, dan yang kedua adalah bahan ajar non-cetak atau multimedia, bisa berupa video lecture atau materi-materi atau konten interaktif. Jadi kalau untuk pengembangan bahan ajar ada beberapa langkah yang harus dilakukan dalam proses pengembangan. Pertama adalah tentunya penerimaan soft copy manuskrip PAC dari fakultas atau tadi kita ngelihat dari model dari SME-nya. Terus kemudian kita menyiapkan modelingnya, dummy-nya. Terus kemudian kita potongan-potongan dari konten itu kemudian kita arsipkan, terus kemudian kita integrasikan menjadi suatu master, terus kemudian pada akhirnya menjadi pencetakan bahan ajar cetak. Jadi pada langkah 1 tadi itu hanya bisa berjalan jika persyaratan atau requirement teknis yang dibutuhkan sudah dilengkapi oleh fakultas. Misalnya modulnya sudah lengkap, dari isi modulnya ini hitungan lama belajarnya itu sudah sesuai dengan SKS yang diharapkan, materinya sudah direview oleh SME dan co-SME, apakah deskripsi mata kuliah sudah lengkap, desain cover dan surat pengantar. Nah setelah ini bisa lanjut berjalan. Sedangkan untuk memperkirakan kemungkinan cost, P2M2 sudah membuat semacam standar ya, misalnya untuk mengetik suatu materi itu sekitar butuh 6 hari per SKS untuk ilmu sosial, 9 hari per SKS untuk matematika, 9 hari per SKS untuk bahasa Inggris, dan selanjutnya. Sebagai contoh untuk copy editor juga sama, mungkin butuh waktu sekitar 3 hari per SKS untuk ilmu sosial, dan selanjutnya. Nah selanjutnya setelah ini, tadi kita mulai menyiapkan suatu model proses belajar, model konten belajar, atau berupa buku yang master buku. Jadi ini harus direview kembali oleh fakultas, kemudian setelah di ACC, kemudian master cetak itu menjadi dummy cetak itu menjadi master yang siap diduplikasi atau digandakan dan kemudian siap untuk dijual atau di delivery ke mahasiswa. Ini pencetakan BNC. Kami untuk pencetakan kami menggunakan vendor karena kapasitas produksi di internal kami ya terbatas. Ini bagaimana cara kami untuk menyusun soft copy internal di storage di P2M2. Nah, selanjutnya adalah bagaimana proses ketika kami ingin mengembangkan bahan ajar non cetak. Ya, tentunya pertama tadi identifikasi kebutuhan, dimulai dari diskusi kira-kira konten-konten apa yang ingin dikembangkan menjadi materi video atau materi animasi, terus kemudian stock shot apa yang ingin dimasukkan ke dalam konten tersebut, terus kemudian mulai masuk ke proses produksi, ada syuting video, recording audio, terus dari situ kemudian mulai di-compiling, diintegrasikan menjadi suatu kesatuan. Terus kemudian step berikutnya adalah bagaimana kita mengemas, apakah ini suatu produk multimedia yang berdiri sendiri, misalnya video lecture yang kita akan taruh di UTTV yang ada di YouTube, atau kita ingin mengembangkan sebagai produk dari CAI, Computer Aid Instruction, jadi yang harus dipasang pada LMS atau perangkat teknologi. Nah, selanjutnya terakhir tentunya kita harus mereview apakah konten ini sudah sesuai dengan maksud dari CSME. Ketika ini sudah jadi, ini tadi yang saya sudah jelaskan. Jadi ketika sudah jadi, ya kemudian siap produksi. Nah, ini berikut adalah salah satu perkiraan durasi waktu untuk produksi dari proses telah media, tadi identifikasi konten sampai proses produksi. Jadi rata-rata di UT untuk satu konten multimedia lengkap itu membutuhkan sekitar waktu 20 hari untuk memproduksi satu konten multimedia untuk satu mata kuliah. Misalnya satu mata kuliah sekitar 3 SKS lah, kurang lebih seperti itu. Ini salah satu contoh lain untuk misalnya bukan hanya video lecture tapi interaktif. Nah, bisa dilihat bahwa untuk interaktif waktu yang dibutuhkan lebih lama. Ya, ini contoh untuk konten berapa lama waktu yang dibutuhkan untuk mengembangkan suatu konten audio, karena audio modelnya hanya seperti audio podcast. Ini waktu produksi dan editingnya juga menjadi lebih sedikit ya, jadi dari 20 hari menjadi 7 hari. Ini contoh lain, program-program waktu pengerjaan. Itu saja, demikian hasil share dan paparan dari kami. Saya ada buku bagus yang mungkin bisa diakses atau bisa dicari oleh teman-teman ketika ingin mengembangkan multimedia, khususnya untuk kemampuan teknikal. Jadi ada buku bagus yang namanya, kebalik, judulnya adalah Developing Technical Training, pengarangnya adalah Ruth Clark. Ini cukup bagus untuk dijadikan guidelines, jadi membantu kita untuk mengidentifikasi kira-kira misalnya suatu skills itu kira-kira interaksi apa yang baik yang harus diintegrasikan pada suatu konten. Jadi misalnya untuk kemampuan kita mendemonstrasikan sesuatu, kira-kira konten multimedia apa yang harus dibuat. Nah, buku ini menyediakan guidelines yang cukup bagus dan saya rekomendasikan teman-teman untuk memiliki ini ketika ingin mulai mengembangkan suatu konten multimedia untuk proses pembelajaran. Demikian share dari saya. Mohon maaf kalau ada kekurangan. Terima kasih atas waktunya, Bu Widyasti. Kembali saya kembalikan ke moderator. Terima kasih.
Baik, terima kasih banyak Pak Dimas yang sudah sharing ya secara detail sampai berapa lama waktu yang dibutuhkan, prosesnya, tahap-tahapannya, dan juga teori-teori pendekatan yang digunakan oleh Universitas Terbuka dalam mengembangkan pelatihan online. Okay, so Alex and JC, we have all the presentation completely now. I'm going to move forward with the question and answer session. And I will be speaking, I think, when I ask the question to you, then I will be speaking in English, but maybe other times I will be speaking in Indonesian. Baik, Bapak Ibu, saya terima kasih banyak. Saya lihat sudah banyak sekali pertanyaan yang menarik dari Bapak Ibu. Saya akan coba tanyakan kepada para pembicara, namun sebelumnya saya juga akan mengarahkan beberapa hal gitu. Ada cukup banyak nih pertanyaan mengenai bagaimana murid atau guru itu bisa mengakses pembelajaran ketika memang internetnya itu terbatas gitu. Kemudian ada juga banyak pertanyaan mengenai bagaimana membuat pelatihan daring atau online untuk hal-hal yang sifatnya sangat praktek kayak seperti mengelas, kemudian menjahit, membuat patung begitu. Hal-hal ini sebenarnya sudah dibahas Bapak Ibu pada sesi-sesi sebelumnya. Jadi mungkin saya tidak akan terlalu banyak menanyakannya pada saat ini. Bapak dan Ibu bisa mengakses sesi sebelumnya, selalu diakses lagi, bisa di YouTube. Jadi Bapak Ibu buka YouTube, kemudian langsung saja cari ILO TV Indonesia. Nanti di situ akan muncul Bapak Ibu sesi-sesi sebelumnya, jadi Bapak Ibu bisa dengerin sambil nyupir, atau sambil di jalan, atau sambil masak gitu ya, tinggal nyalain YouTube-nya, kemudian pasang headset gitu, jadi bisa didengarkan kembali. Kemudian kalau misalnya pun mau materi-materi dari sesi yang sebelumnya, itu juga bisa mengakses websitenya ILO, nanti kami akan informasikan tautan website ILO. Oke, sekarang saya akan lanjut dengan pertanyaannya. Salah satu pertanyaannya di sini adalah kepada Alex. So there's a question for you, Alex. And I see that you already answered some of the questions in chat room.
No, I tried
so thank
to.
You for that.
I copied and pasted some of the some of the questions.
Yeah, thank you. So here's a question also for you, and also for Jessie actually, because it's you guys presented this. So you two use Moodle. So the question here, why is it that it's a recommended app? Why do you use Moodle?
Jesse, you want to go first, or you want me to go first?
Look, I'll just jump in and then you can add to it, Alex.
Sure.
Look, that's a good question. There are other formats. I think particularly Moodle, I guess, has been something that's supported largely and used largely in the TAFE sector. So there are broader supports for the format. And so I guess it's become somewhat of a standard. However, saying that there are other formats, and I think that Teams is probably your other candidate that's a large, has a large part of the market. So it's primarily that it's just been in the market for a long time. People have been using it and are familiar with it. It's got, there's some great benefits to it. There's room for improvement. That's my quick input on that.
Okay.
So
Alex?
So agree with Jesse. So when I started with Chisholm, there was already Moodle. Even with other organizations, people have been using Moodle as well. I think it's been around since 2002. There's a lot of support and development work to go into this learning platform. And one of the other benefits I mentioned in the chat was it has the accompanying Moodle app as well. So when you design your course and your activities in Moodle on your laptop, if you set it up correctly, students can download the Moodle app and go through their quiz or their activity and respond on their smartphone. So if students are in a remote area or they don't have a good internet connection, they can go to a Wi-Fi area, download the course material, and then study offline as well.
Okay, thank you. So the next question, and this applies to all the three speakers, is that you were talking about, the question is about the model of developing the training materials. You know, Alex mentioned AD model, and then Pak Dimas mentioned about the Kirkpatrick model in addition to AD model. So the question here from the participant is, who do you involve for AD model, for example? Who do you involve throughout the process? Like, who do what in that process? You maybe want to answer that, Alex?
Yeah, sure. I'll share my screen just to bring up the ADDIE, ADDIE diagram as well.
Yeah.
So I'll just bring that up. Can everyone see that one?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So for myself and the team, over the years we've gone through some form of this ADDIE model, and within my team, within the Chisholm Online product development team, I have instructional designers, assessment specialists, and one education technologist. So the way it works is, at the moment, the instructional designer takes care of the content, but works with the assessment specialist to develop the assessments together. And sometimes in other organizations, they might be called learning designers as well.
Yeah.
And so the education technologist helps with the implementation and to help put the Moodle course and materials into Moodle or into the learning platform. And so during the analysis and design phase, usually it's the instructional designers and the assessment specialists. At that time, during the planning, they also bring in the subject matter expert, any industry consultants, maybe other teachers in this industry that are helping to run the course, to get their feedback, get their information on what's the best way to develop and design this course. Maybe there are some topics that are a lot easier and should be at the start of the student's learning journey, whereas the more complicated topics should be towards the end. So that information can usually only be provided by those experts. And then during the development and the implementation, it's usually the instructional designers, the assessment specialists, working with the education technologist on any technical issues. So during the design, development, and implementation, and at the end, when everything has been implemented, we try and get everyone into a debrief or a feedback session to find out what things went well, what things can we improve.
Can be improved, yeah.
Yeah, so the more people you can involve, the better.
Okay, thank you very much, Alex. Pak Dimas, ada masukan atau pendapat mungkin Pak mengenai model yang digunakan untuk proses mengembangkan materi-materi pelajaran?
Masukan
Karena
saya
setahu saya juga itu kadang-kadang AD model memang banyak sekali digunakan ya Pak Dimas gitu, tapi banyak juga model yang lain gitu, masing-masing ada plus minusnya. Mungkin Bapak bisa sharing model yang lain atau pendekatan yang lain.
Ya, sebetulnya sih ada banyak model yang bisa kita implementasikan selain dari AD yang merupakan biasanya standar ya AD model. Kita bisa menggunakan motivational design yang pertama diperkenalkan oleh John Keller, itu juga bagus. fokus pada model itu adalah untuk memastikan bahwa motivasi si pembelajar selama proses delivery konten atau proses konten terjaga itu bisa kita gunakan karena tanpa kita bisa menjaga motivasi itu tentunya proses belajar kan tidak bisa efektif ya. Tapi pada dasarnya sih model-model tersebut biasanya sih overlapping dengan model-model yang lainnya. Biasanya ada kesamaan proses sih. Yang jelas pastinya dimulai dari analisa dan yang terakhir pasti dimulai dengan terakhir akan diakhiri dengan evaluasi. Jadi terserah dari Bapak dan Ibu ingin menggunakan mana yang nyaman. Yang penting tujuan pembelajar itu tersampaikan dengan baik ke mahasiswa. Jadi kan intinya kita tidak usah meributkan model apa yang dipakai, tetapi bagaimana caranya materi yang ingin kita delivery ke siswa itu tersampaikan dengan baik, siswa juga bisa belajar dengan baik, siswa bisa mengakuisisi skills yang kita harapkan dengan baik. Jadi silakan gunakan model apapun, kita bisa komunikasikan masing-masing model itu sesuai dengan strategi pembelajarannya. Kita bisa gunakan kelebihan dari masing-masing model itu untuk lebih mengenhance proses pembelajaran. Jadi
baik.
Ya gunakan semuanya aja lah gitu loh.
Cocok-cocokan kadang-kadang ya Pak ya?
Ya, cocok-cocokan sih. Jadi memang butuh beberapa kali untuk mencoba model mana yang paling cocok, tapi intinya sebenarnya setiap model pada dasarnya sama kok. Jadi hanya dari kita aja, tergantung dari resource-nya kita untuk bagaimana kita untuk memulai. Kalau UT kan menggunakan pendekatan industrial ya. Jadi karena mahasiswa kita sangat banyak, jadi kita menggunakan pendekatan industrial. Jadi model-model pengembangan yang agak rigid itu kita perlukan karena kita harus mengurangi kemungkinan variasi kan, karena target audiens kita sangat banyak. Nah, ketika pada konteks itu tentunya kita menggunakan model-model pengembangan yang lebih rigid. Misalnya tadi yang ID model kita juga gunakan itu.
Baik.
Untuk pengembangan multimedia kita gunakan yang waterfall, karena lebih fleksibel, kita bisa ya intinya kita bisa gabungkan setiap proses atau kita bisa berubah dan lain sebagainya. Baik. Atau juga kita bisa gunakan model agile kalau misalnya situasinya juga cepat berubah, jadi kita bisa menggunakan model agile. Jadi apapun model bisa dipakai disesuaikan dengan situasi saat itu.
Baik, terima kasih Pak Dimas. Iya, jadi Bapak Ibu sebenarnya ini lumayan banyak ya pertanyaan mengenai model atau pendekatan yang digunakan untuk mengembangkan materi pembelajaran dari yang tadinya tatap muka menjadi online gitu. Dan sudah disebutkan oleh para pembicara sebenarnya modelnya atau pendekatannya banyak. Silahkan Bapak Ibu saja memilih gitu mana yang cocok dengan institusi Bapak dan Ibu. Karena setiap pendekatan ada plus minusnya juga, dan kadang-kadang memang juga cocok-cocokan enaknya yang mana. Yang kalau saya bisa rangkum, biasanya dari semua model itu kesamaannya adalah ada proses sederhananya adalah pertama memahami dulu yang mau belajar ini siapa. Jadi murid kita siapa, pahami dulu siapa mereka, kemudian mulai dari situ kita mengembangkan materinya. Kemudian sebelum nanti benar-benar materinya itu benar-benar digunakan secara online, itu harus ada proses umpan balik. Jadi dites dulu, diumpan balikan, tanya ke gurunya gimana, tanya juga dites dulu misalnya ke beberapa murid bagaimana. Jadi ada proses evaluasinya, kemudian diperbaiki sebelum akhirnya dia benar-benar matang dan benar-benar siap untuk disampaikan secara daring atau online. Kurang lebih itu proses besarnya dari berbagai pendekatan yang ada. Saya akan lanjut dengan pertanyaan berikutnya. So JC, the next question is for you. So you were mentioning that at the end of your learning process is about certification. But the question here is that how do you evaluate how do you evaluate that your students really understand and really have the knowledge and the skills of your teaching materials? Do you do an evaluation on one at the end, or do you do like a series of assessment throughout the program?
Yeah, so there certainly is. So in terms of the Australian certification, there is a large framework, and it's a highly kind of regulated industry, and there's a lot of process to manage how we authenticate and ensure that an assessment judgment is authentic and valid and correct and flexible. So so there's a whole kind of framework around it and a process of developing assessment tools, validating those assessment tools so that you can ensure that they're actually capturing valid evidence from that particular student of their understanding and their application of the skills. So there's a rather large framework that all of the vocational sector is really inducted into. That's really our guideline for that process. So ultimately, to try and add a little bit more to that, in the online environment, I guess there's some challenges possibly with authentication of that evidence to ensure that that evidence is from that particular student and that they created it. And certainly there are declarations that students need to make that it is their material, or that there's referencing involved. And ultimately, I guess what you're doing is you're gathering a body of evidence to make an assessment judgment. So I think you talk about kind of a portfolio of evidence that would be quite common. Often there is multiple modes of assessment, assessment methods that are used, so that it's not to be assessed on a unit of competence. There's a variety of assessments that assess in different ways to gather that evidence to make that judgment. And that's critical to issuing a nationally recognised qualification. So there's quite a variety of ways that you can gather that evidence, and certainly so oral questioning, a student demonstrating particular activities or demonstrating knowledge, and using kind of checklists that against criteria. So basically you have set criteria that you're gathering evidence against. The evidence could be written, it could be verbal, it could be files that have been submitted to you. It's usually and often a combination of those.
So could you probably share just one example on how you gather evidence that your student is actually the student, like the person is actually the one who developed the assignment, right?
Yes, absolutely. So I guess, I mean, it would be interesting to see Alex's opinion on this too, because he's dealing with solely online. My situation is primarily face-to-face, so there's still regular direct contact with that student. And so a teacher basically, that's right, you know the people. So my context is not one where it's all remote and you have little, you're providing materials and then they're submitting evidence around those materials. So really the validation of that assessment judgment is supported by the regular contact of the trainer with that student. So I think whereas the completely online context is I guess quite different, and there's more concerns about the authenticity. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. But Alex, you want to add on to what Jesse said?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, there are always going to be concerns with fully online assessments, and during those planning phases for new courses, we do make note of those assessments or tasks that, for example, must be done in the workplace. So we do have some qualifications that where the student participates in work experience or work placement, and then we have checklists in place to make sure that during those work placement blocks, has the student gone and managed to complete these tasks in a manner that's suitable for us, and during certain times we also have assessors to go out and check on these students as well. With COVID-19, we've had to extend the work placement requirement for some of the students because, if it's a childcare student, they might not have access to a childcare centre. And so where we can, we try and develop alternative assessments or, ask them to try a simulated environment, or we even have arrangements with other departments to use their facilities, and we just schedule a time for the students to go to the campus and practice those workplace skills and practical skills. And one more that we're trying to expand is partnerships with other companies or organizations to have those environments. For example, maybe not nursing, but maybe a partnered aged care facility. They have the proper beds, they have the proper training dummies and equipment. You know, can we arrange a time for our students to go in with the teacher to go through those practical assessments?
Okay, so but this also came up a little bit on the previous session actually. So I'm just asking to Alex and Jesse and also Pak Dimas. So what I understand is that when we talk about assessment of the learning outcome, and especially when we talk about practical skills, that some part of it can probably be done online, you know, like, but many people and many speakers said that for vocational training, for practical part, it's really difficult to deliver it in 100% online, and eventually some part of it, whether it's the learning session or the assessment, has to be done face to face. So do you have any comment on that? Maybe I start with Pak Dimas.
Iya Bu, untuk saya sih sebenarnya agak setuju ya dengan untuk vocational study ya. Memang ada beberapa praktek-praktek yang nampaknya memang sulit untuk di-deliver secara online. Misalnya kasus kayak perawat atau dokter bagaimana misalnya menghandle pasien dan lain sebagainya. Cuma karena kadang-kadang kan tadi kita juga ada situasi di mana situasi itu sangat mendesak, misalnya kayak COVID, kejadian seperti COVID, yang memang kita harus memikirkan berbagai cara untuk bagaimana kita segera mengkonversi proses pembelajaran yang tadi harusnya face to face menjadi online. Ini memang ada banyak pendekatan yang bisa kita gunakan, misalnya juga misalnya bagaimana kita juga katakanlah siswa bisa mempraktekkan kegiatan dengan menggunakan boneka dummy untuk melakukan sesuatu, dan kemudian di hari kemudian dia post kembali ke LMS, dan kemudian itu diakses oleh entah itu pengajar atau siswa lain apakah prosedur skills itu sudah dilakukan dengan benar. Kita bisa gunakan teknik seperti itu. Walaupun demikian memang tetap harus kita
ada tatap muka juga ya Pak ya.
Memang ada beberapa skills yang harus kita dari perspektif pengajar pun juga harus kita akses secara langsung lah. Kita harus melihat kan. Misalnya katakanlah ketika kita melakukan suatu tindakan, apakah ada tangan si siswa itu gemetar atau bagaimana, itu kan mungkin agak susah dilihat ketika kita menggunakan.
Betul sekali. Betul ya. Ya, ini juga sebenarnya ada di sesi sebelumnya Bapak Ibu muncul memang terutama ketika kita bicara pelatihan-pelatihan yang terkait dengan bagaimana seseorang itu menghadapi manusia secara langsung ya, dalam hal ini seperti dokter, suster dan sebagainya. Memang sejauh ini tidak bisa 100% daring atau online. Tetap harus ada pelatihan secara tatap muka. Yang bisa dilakukan, masukan dari sesi sebelumnya adalah menyesuaikan sesi tatap muka itu. Misalnya dulu satu kelas datang ke rumah sakit untuk latihan praktek, satu kelas datang berbondong-bondong 30. Sekarang mungkin karena ada COVID, ya datangnya harus 10 kali 3 kali. Gitu. Nah ini sebenarnya juga sempat dibahas di sesi sebelumnya. Tapi saya mau minta masukan, so maybe JC and Rob, Alex, you have a comment on that?
Sebetulnya kita juga bisa menggunakan simulasi Bu, menggunakan semacam interaktif virtual seperti itu ya.
Betul. Ya, tapi mungkin saya mau dengar masukan dulu Pak dari JC atau Alex ya.
I'll jump in here. I guess ultimately the challenge is when your training or your assessment environment has very specific requirements. So the question is whether that's really the thing that determines what has to be done in a physical, practical environment. So if it needs to be in a hospital, if it needs to be in a theatre, if it needs to be in a recording studio, if it needs to be in a particular environment with particular tools, that's our challenge. And so I guess what I was trying to explore in my presentation is going, let's identify that component that has a specific technical or location context requirement so that we know how to manage that physical environment. Okay, so and where we can, we try and we'll be all trying to move as much of our development of the theoretical concepts online, so that you're preparing people to have the underlying knowledge, but ultimately, so you can still assess people's knowledge and understanding, but then you also need to assess their application of that knowledge. And so some of these things can be done remotely. So, for example, in some of my programs, the people who are making music with software, they can demonstrate that very easily. They can share their screen, they can share their audio samples, they can talk to what they're doing. Okay, so they've got that there. With performance students, for example, they can perform to the audience that's in Zoom now. Okay, but there's some things that definitely require that physical environment, and ultimately, what we need to do is assess exactly what that is, how we're going to access it, how we're going to make that safe, so that you've got fairly targeted assessment. And probably that the greatest challenge for most of us will be, how do we give that application, that the time to our students to develop and try and apply those skills before we actually assess them. There still is a practical component. So I guess one of the things that we're exploring is providing access to students to the equipment so that they can book time in a studio by themselves or with small groups to record, and that they can access it without a large group there. So because they're going to have to be able to do that, so they can swipe in. There's cautionary measures around how they use those spaces. So I think all of us will be reducing the time that occurs and really focusing how we're going to do that in a short amount of time. How do we support the learning and the applied learning prior to the assessment in a particular environment?
Okay, thank you Jesse. So, iya Bapak Ibu, jadi memang balik lagi ini berarti ketika kita mau merancang program pembelajaran daring, kita benar-benar harus tahu dulu siapa muridnya, kemudian apa yang mau diajarkan, kemudian menentukan berarti dari yang diajarkan itu mana yang bisa online, mana yang bisa offline. Itu untuk semua ya, semua jenis pelatihan online. Saya akan lanjut karena waktunya tidak banyak. Saya akan lanjut ke pertanyaan berikutnya. So the next question is for Alex. So as we all know, when we talk about learning, usually we learn about three things. The attitude, skills, and knowledge. And knowledge is, if I can say, a bit easier to measure, right? You can ask questions to measure the knowledge. And skills also, you can ask people maybe to practice their skills. So the question here is that how do we measure change of attitude and behavior of our students? Do you have any share of experience maybe?
Are you talking about, sorry, just to clarify, is that about how they feel about engaging online particularly, or so how they behave?
Yeah, well, the question is about how do you measure that their attitude and their behavior has also improved out of the learning process.
Maybe I'll let Alex have a go this time first, and then I'll jump in.
Yeah. That's the question is for Alex actually.
Yeah, no worries. I'll give it a try. First of all, it's trying to, these are things that the teachers have tried in the past. I mean, and this part is not too different from a face-to-face or a classroom environment, which is the teachers need to get to know the student, know their audience. Now, if if a student is not attentive or struggling for some reason, or is having issues, it's just a matter of finding out what's going on. Maybe like I've said with the 10-week structure at Chisholm Online, there's the weekly webinars that the teacher runs, but maybe they need to set up a separate time with particular students to find out, hey, what's going on? Are you having trouble? Is your learning environment okay? How are things going at home? So, and just asking for, what the students are after in these sessions, asking for their participation, their experience and their opinions. And they might even be able to try like a flipped learning approach. So, the traditional classroom setting or traditional teaching setting, it would just be a teacher presents and reads information, and then the students go and do the work.
Taking notes.
Take notes, yeah. Whereas with online learning now, we have the option to flip that around so that here's your course, here's all your information. This is information that is, the same. If it's accounting formulas, it's going to be the same all throughout. And they can access that material whenever they need to make the course more meaningful for the students. It's to get the teacher's experience, and so during those webinar sessions, can the students ask specific questions for the teacher to get their insights, to get their experience, to get their to get their thoughts on the topic. So those are a few things that the teachers have tried over the years.
Okay, thank you very much, Alex. So because it's almost 2 hours now, I'm just gonna ask for maybe the last thing that you want to say from the speakers. Maybe I will start with Pak Dimas. Mungkin ada hal terakhir yang mau disampaikan, Pak?
Apa ya?
Mungkin Bapak mau sharing kontak Bapak, kalau boleh dikontak ke peserta.
Intinya sih kita memang menghadapi masa-masa sulit ya. Bahkan bagi kami, bagi UT yang sudah berdiri dari tahun 84, yang memang dari awal sudah mendelivery program dalam bentuk PJJ dengan situasi COVID ini pun juga challenge-nya cukup luar biasa ya. Misalnya, contoh, meskipun kami ini delivery-nya PJJ, tapi selama ini kan kami juga memberikan layanan tutorial tatap muka, di mana kurang lebih sekitar ada 15.000 kelas paralel yang harus kita jalankan dalam satu semester di seluruh Indonesia. Dan kemudian angka 15.000 ini harus kita konversi menjadi model tatap muka online. Nah, ini kan juga challenge-nya cukup luar biasa ya. Bagaimana kami juga harus dalam jangka waktu yang sangat singkat, itu bagaimana kami harus utamanya mentraining dosen, pengajar-pengajar yang ada di daerah, ada 15.000 dosen yang harus kita training. Terus kemudian dari sisi teknologi, kita juga harus mencari ini provider mana yang bisa membantu kami mendelivery 15.000 kelas online yang bisa berjalan selama paralel ini kan. Saya sebagai contoh kayak Zoom ini kan kurang lebih sekitar $14 untuk satu sesi. Kalau dikali 15.000 kan ini mungkin buat sebagian ini juga challenge juga ya. Alhamdulillah kami juga dibantu oleh beberapa vendor teknologi yang memberikan kami akses ke teknologi dengan harga yang murah atau bahkan gratis, sehingga dari sisi teknologi kita dimudahkan dari transformasi dari 15.000 kelas yang harusnya tatap muka kemudian menjadi 15.000 kelas yang bisa kita delivery secara online. Jadi fokus kita lebih ke bagaimana kita menyiapkan dosen dan bagaimana kita menyiapkan mahasiswa untuk melakukan transaksi, termasuk juga
penyediaan online,
termasuk juga penyediaan akses internet gratis buat si mahasiswa. Jadi kita juga bekerjasama dengan banyak vendor untuk memberikan akses internet gratis. Dan memang dari proses ini kita juga harus sadari bahwa ternyata infrastruktur internet di Indonesia itu tidak merata ya di seluruh Indonesia. Jadi ada satu case ekstrim di mana siswa kami itu harus manjat pohon kelapa itu untuk bisa ambil pegang handphone untuk bisa belajar tatap muka. Jadi itulah challenge kami. Tapi ya dengan niat ya alhamdulillah kita bisa lalui semester kemarin dengan selamat lah. Gitu. Meskipun tidak berdarah-darah juga sebetulnya.
Baik. Terima kasih banyak Pak Dimas. So, Jesse, you want to say, like a wrap up?
Sure. Thank you. Yes. Well, with all the challenges we're facing, there are many opportunities that come with those as well. Many opportunities for improvement and doing something different and innovative. And certainly, I've been lucky to work with some amazing Indonesian colleagues who are very inspired to bring really high quality education to Indonesian people. I know it's a really strong focus for you, and I think that with this many people working towards that outcome, that certainly you'll work through those primarily hurdles of technology and access that need to be overcome to deliver those outcomes. And I think probably the last thing is just in designing your programs, you just need to clearly identify what has to be face-to-face or in a specific environment. Can you provide those tools to the people, or do they have those tools themselves, and then what's online? But thank you very much for your time. We're all in it together, and it's great to be able to share some of this with you. So thank you.
Thank you very much, JC. Alex?
Guys, just wanted to say, thank you for the opportunity to present here. COVID-19 is a very interesting and challenging experience for everyone. I think we are quite lucky to be in an education space with the technological advances that we've made over the last 10, 20 years to be able to connect people like this. You know, if we're in this situation without any Zoom or webinar sessions, I don't know how we would get 160 people together. So I just want to say thank you there. Please reach out, Hiranya, if you need another Q&A session, or if you need the updated PowerPoints, I'll send them through. If anyone has any questions, my contact details are there as well. I know I've covered a lot of tools and software and processes in just 20 minutes, and usually that's nowhere near enough time. So if you need more information, please reach out.
Yeah, thank you very much, Alex. Baik Bapak Ibu, karena keterbatasan waktu, saya akan memberikan beberapa informasi penutup. Jangan bubar dulu. Saya coba sharing. Sebentar ya. Saya akan sharing screen saya. Baik, apakah bisa dilihat?
Bisa nih.
Bisa ya. Baik Bapak Ibu, untuk informasi sesi berikutnya itu adalah bagaimana kita bisa memanfaatkan teknologi. Sesi berikutnya akan lebih fokus ke diklat vokasional di bidang bangunan dan konstruksi. Jadi mungkin Bapak dan Ibu dari SMK, Politeknik maupun BLK yang fokusnya ke bangunan konstruksi akan sangat tertarik karena ada contoh-contoh fotonya nanti ya bagaimana bidang ini sebagian bisa disampaikan secara online. Jadwalnya adalah Kamis juga, tanggal 23 Juli, jamnya sama, jam 10 sampai 12 waktu Jakarta, WIB. Untuk beberapa informasi atau beberapa pertanyaan mungkin saya mau sharing juga. Banyak Bapak Ibu tadi yang bertanya, model apa yang bisa digunakan untuk merancang bahan belajar? Teori apa yang bisa digunakan untuk melakukan assessment murid gitu ya. Kalau saya sih senangnya itu pakai taksonomi Bloom namanya, atau Bloom's taksonomi. Dan kalau Bapak Ibu cari di Google sebenarnya ada tuh sekarang Bloom taksonomi yang bentuknya juga piramid, itu disesuaikan tuh, disarankan nanti pakai teknologinya apa, apakah pakai WhatsApp aja, atau mau pakai Zoom, atau mau pakai virtual reality. Jadi si pendekatan Bloom taksonomi ini pun yang sudah tua sebenarnya, itu sudah diupdate ya, disesuaikan. Kemudian Bapak Ibu bisa lihat tuh kalau mau mengukur pengetahuan berarti pakai teknologinya apa, mau mengukur sikap pakai teknologinya apa gitu. Tapi hal-hal seperti ini bagaimana kita mendesain, merancang, melakukan, dan juga bagaimana kita melakukan assessment itu sebenarnya bisa dipelajari. Tadi Bapak Ibu juga ada beberapa yang tanya, ada nggak sih training-training untuk pengajar, untuk guru tentang bagaimana mengadakan pembelajaran secara online. Tentunya guru juga perlu dilatih. Nah, saya mau memberikan referensi, Bapak Ibu bisa coba akses ke www.itcilo.org. Jadi ITC ini adalah International Training Center dari ILO. Di sini kami punya banyak sekali pelatihan-pelatihan tentang bagaimana kita bisa memberikan pelatihan secara daring gitu. Pelatihan ini berbayar ya Bapak Ibu, sebagian besar berbayar. Tapi karena kami ILO, kalau Bapak Ibu bisa bilang mungkin sama institusi Bapak Ibu, dan mungkin kami bisa membantu untuk memberikan referensi supaya Bapak Ibu bisa ikut di pelatihannya. Itu tambahan dari saya. Kemudian silakan Bapak Ibu juga melihat berita dari kami, dari ILO, termasuk mengenai webinar ini. Nanti link-link ini akan dituliskan di chat. Kemudian saya minta tolong Bapak Ibu untuk sekarang bisa memberikan umpan balik di chat. Ditulis saja menurut Bapak Ibu apakah bermanfaat atau tidak, atau kurang menggreget misalnya, atau mungkin ada topik lain lagi untuk sesi-sesi berikutnya yang dibutuhkan Bapak Ibu. Mohon Bapak Ibu bersedia menuliskannya di ruang chat. Kemudian bahan presentasinya bisa diakses di tautan ini. Semua tadi ketiga presentasi sudah kami unggah ke website ILO, ini websitenya. Dan di dalam presentasi itu ada alamat emailnya Bapak-Bapak pembicara ya, Pak Dimas, Pak Jesse, Pak Alex, kalau misalnya tadi Bapak Ibu nanya mau menghubungi mereka di mana. Demikian Bapak Ibu, sekali lagi terima kasih banyak sekali. Kami akan tetap buka beberapa saat ini chatnya untuk memberikan umpan balik dan juga untuk menulis tautan-tautannya. Namun untuk yang sudah mau meninggalkan, silahkan. Sekali lagi terima kasih, selamat siang. Thank you Alex, thank you Jessie, thank you very much for your time. Terima kasih banyak Pak Dimas. Selamat siang, good afternoon.
Terima kasih, sama-sama.
Baik Bapak Ibu, masih bisa dibuka ruang chatnya untuk menuliskan umpan balik, dan juga kami akan menuliskan tautan materinya.